All right, guys, it's Mitchell Berry back with the Berry team. We got a great video today. So we are going to talk about tips for millennials wanting to buy a home. Now, if you're one of those Gen Zers, you might be able to apply some of these as well. But specifically, we're talking about millennials, kind of the common things that we see that they say of why they can't buy a home and why those may or may not be right or wrong. So today I've got a buddy, John Kissel, with me. He is also a realtor here at Key Associates. John, say what's up.
Hi, everybody. My name is John Kissel. I'm actually making my first YouTube video appearance, or I guess I'm in some of Kara's YouTube videos.
Yeah.
My first willing YouTube video appearance.
There you go. John's not a fan of the camera, which is fine. He hopped in there today.
We're getting there.
So John does a lot of property management, which is also a great experience because you deal with a lot of renters who are eventually wanting to buy a home potentially. So you see that side, but then you also sell quite a bit as well. So you've seen both sides.
Yes, and so I'm primarily property management, totally different ballgame than what Mitchell does on an everyday basis. But as far as this video goes, we both do have quite a bit of experience with first-time home buyers, especially millennials.
Yeah, we're both kind of probably on the tail end of the millennial age. I guess some people would try and force us into the Gen Z box, but technically millennials, and I pride myself on considering myself a millennial because that's how I act 99% of the time.
People call him Uncle Mitchell for a reason.
That's right. Okay, so when you're talking to a millennial who is thinking about buying a home, what would you say are the top maybe 3 things that you get where they're like, I can't buy because XYZ?
So I'm going to kind of lean on Mitchell for several of these items, but the first one I mentioned to Mitchell earlier is passing or failing inspections. And so there is no, well, maybe in some places there are, but in our market, there is no passing or failing inspections per se. What there is that you have to get through is the appraisal. And so a lot of your millennial buyers are going to be government loans, so it's going to be FHA or USDA. Sometimes VA, not as common, at least with who I work with. So there are going to be appraisal items, and that includes chipping and peeling paint, cracked concrete, unfinished flooring, etc. Those are the items that need to be fixed, or it's just flat out not going to work out. And I mean, that's on a case-by-case basis, and sometimes it depends on how your appraiser's feeling that day. Sometimes they'll nitpick everything. Sometimes they'll look over some pretty egregious items, and the deal will still go through.
Yeah, I had, I think it was an 1800s house with a ton of flaking paint, and the appraiser was like, no, it's fine.
Exactly.
Crazy. And the inspection, you're going to get a ton of items on that. I always tell my clients you might do something a little different, but we can ask for those items to be fixed. Oh, most times, every now and then you can't, if they're major defects. So you can still, if that's a worry for you of, will these items get fixed, you can still get them fixed. But like John said, there's no pass or fail. Here are these items. What do we want to try to negotiate to be fixed? If we can't get those major items fixed that are actually defects, we can still back out and move on.
Yeah.
Usually, right? And if there's a different case there, we know that ahead of time. Okay, what's number 2?
I think you mentioned down payments earlier.
So down payments and interest rates are probably what I get the most, and rightfully so. I think millennials, you got a lot of us who are starting careers, or maybe you're 5-10 years in, income's going up, but not necessarily enough for the cost of living. And so you've got to save enough for a down payment, and you have to be able to afford your monthly payment. So those are the 2 that I get most common. But I would say down payment, there's a ton of options out there. So many people think I have to have 20% down. What do you see most common for a down payment?
With millennials, 3.5%.
Yeah.
Everyone's going for that FHA loan more often than not, or I've seen a lot of 3% insured conventional.
Yep, 3% conventional. And then if you want more rural, which we do have in this area, and John does a decent amount of that, is going to be, you can even do 0% down on some of those homes.
And so basically anywhere from 0 to 20%, you've got all of the options in the world as far as down payment goes.
Tons of options.
And you've got grant programs.
Yes. Yeah, that's a good, so probably one of the most common ones around here is Indiana Housing.
Yep.
Kentucky, it has a similar program where they essentially grant you your down payment. The only kind of caveat to that is sometimes if you sell it within a certain time period, you got to pay some or all of that back. But again, it varies case by case, but something to look into.
Yep.
And then interest rate. So interest rates, where are we sitting?
We're around 8.
Around 8, yes. Some of the more common things that we see here lately are 3-2-1 buy downs and 2-1 buy downs. Have you had anyone really use those?
I have had 0 clients actually do buy downs, but again, I'm more on the property management side, so I would see it less.
Okay, well, we sell a lot of homes. I've had buyers pay for their own buy downs, like a permanent buy down, meaning I can pay some points up front to get my rate down a little lower, so the bank is still getting some money up front. You get a lower interest rate, but specifically 2-1 and 3-2-1 buy downs are temporary rate buy downs, and you can get the seller sometimes to buy that down.
Correct me if I'm wrong, I think that's the main idea, isn't it? To get a seller credit, at least the way lenders usually sell the product to realtors.
Yes, and now that the market's kind of cooling down, so homes are sitting a little longer, you can basically say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, if you would put this money towards my buy down, then I'll offer this price for your house. So say you have an 8% interest rate. Well, the 2-1 comes into account when your first year you're 2 points lower, so you're at 6. And then the second year you're at 7, and then you go back to 8. And the goal on that is to hopefully have rates lower than that 8 by the time you hit that third year, refinance into a new loan, have the lower interest rate. But then if interest rates come down, prices go up, you're not having to deal with, negotiating a crazy high sales price on a home. Yeah. You've already got the home. Now you just have to renegotiate the rate. We've told people lately, you can renegotiate the rate, you cannot renegotiate the price.
Absolutely. That's good advice.
So that's something, if you're worried about your monthly payment and the rate, that's something to look at. And if rates continue to go up, you made a good decision. If they go down, refinance. You still have to be comfortable with that payment though, because if you're stuck with that payment for 2-3 years, whatever it may be, that's still your payment. So if you're not comfortable with that, it's not a wise decision to buy the home. There was one more that we talked about earlier. Do you remember what it was?
Passing and failing inspections, down payments, rates,
and debt.
Oh, yeah, like medical debt.
Medical debt, school debt. So a lot of millennials, your parents told you to go to college and you did. So good for you. You have $200,000 in debt. So, I think that's the case for a lot of millennials.
Yeah.
You probably have a lot of friends like that.
Absolutely.
And then you come out and then half of us or more don't even use that degree.
And it doesn't look like the debt's going to be forgiven as of right now.
As of right now, maybe that changes, but right now, no. And so you're saddled with this debt, or maybe you had medical stuff happen. And so that's a big thing. There are certain ways around some of it, maybe not all of it.
In my experience, medical debt is the one thing that they almost always don't include in your DTI calculation.
Right.
And DTI is debt to income. So meaning all of your installment debt, whether it's credit cards, an auto loan, etc., that will be included, but medical debt is usually left out.
Yeah, and I think it's on a case-by-case basis. I don't know all the ins and outs. We've got great loan officers who can answer those questions for you. But yeah, I've seen it a lot too, where I think lenders just get it. Like you go into the hospital and you rack up $1 million in debt for some procedure that you couldn't deal with, you couldn't pay on your own. Like it's crazy. We all get it with the medical system. And so they typically ignore that, or they'll somehow do some sort of accounting for it. Now, your school debt, though, you're usually just saddled with. But like I said, there's a lot of different programs, especially if you just came out of college and you're a physician or a teacher or something like that.
Yep.
A lot of lenders will give you like 0% down or grants for that. So there's ways around that. But unfortunately, if you do have $200,000 worth of school debt, it is probably going to affect that. But the best thing to do is talk to a lender, figure that out, ask the questions. There's nothing, if a lender or a real estate agent makes you feel stupid for asking that question, go ask a different one, because there really is no stupid question. Maybe you ask something that a lot of people already know, but that doesn't mean you know it, and someone should answer that for you.
Yeah,
so,
I agree.
I'd say those are the most common things that people think as millennials of why they can't buy a house.
Yeah.
Some valid, some not. If you have any other questions that pop up, though, feel free to reach out to us. 812-315-3850. Whether you're buying in this area, whether you are wanting to lease properties and looking for help with that, whatever it may be, or whether you're buying or selling anywhere across the United States, reach out to us and we can help get that ball rolling for you. We look forward to catching you soon, and we will see you next time.